6.5 foot tall human being too. So they're big.
This is my first time in it with the new suspension.
These are our new front shocks for the truck. These are from Bilstien. They actually customized these a bit for us, so shout out to them. They put some banjo fittings on the reservoirs, so we get a lot of movement, so we can place these reservoirs wherever we need them. And then they made the hose 8 inches longer for us. Go right over here. Basically, it will compress the spring a bit. So this piece here is what holds the bottom of the spring, and it just slides onto the shock shaft, and it sits down here at the bottom, and it basically holds it up. So I'm gonna use this compressor to shorten the spring so that I can slide this on, and then I'll release the tension again. And ta-da, we have a coilover. There we go. I'm a 6.5 foot tall human being too, so they're big. So our front suspension is basically done. We still got to get the rotor and the caliper on here, and we're waiting for our reservoir mounts to show up to get the Bilstien external reservoir set up on this little down tube, our shock hoop that we have in here. And this is actually the same piece of reinforcement that we had on the previous setup. So we actually did not have to cut that off or modify it in any way. This was part of the cage that reinforces the upper pickup points, right? So that these actually stay nice and strong. And we added this upper shock mount to this tube. It was actually in a nice place for it. And we cleared out the factory upper coilover bucket. So we get this extra throw for our extra travel for the CJD suspension. So we have now boxed lowers. It's the same width lower, and we now have a tubular upper that is adjustable with heims on the inside, and it's got monoballs on the outside of the upper and lower ball joint. So that has a little bit more articulation. So we are at the same width, but we picked up about 2, maybe 3 more inches of travel. I don't really remember what we were making. I want to say we were like around 9 something, and now we're like almost 12. So we, and you can see this is pretty much maxed out, and that's in the design of this upper arm and the way that the monoball works, because the factory ball joint style, you just can't get that much articulation out of it. And so that's pretty maxed out. We have full Heim steering up front, a little boot cover for our rack to protect it. We have new front springs that are a lot stiffer than what we ran before, because that was the other issue that we had, was because of all the extra weight from the cage, it actually made the car too soft with our setup that we were running. And so, yes, it was the exact same bolt-in kit that's available in the Frontier Forsberg edition, but because we added, I don't know, how many pounds of tubes did we add to this thing?
A couple hundred?
Yeah, at least. And so it made the front end just a little too soft for when we're like really off-roading it. So, because we're just carrying all the extra weight, the spare tires, the bigger fuel cell, and everything else. So we upped the spring rate on the front to make that a little stiffer so we can hit the whoops a little bit harder. We did add a air bump stop from Bilstien. We also got some limit straps from SDHQ up here. So we got to set the tension on that, and it's obviously just a placeholder. And so that will help us from bottoming out the shock, which will just put a little too much stress on the axles and all these joints, right? So you set the limit here, and then we'll actually pull this up a little bit so we aren't just maxed out on all these joints. So it'll give us a little more protection of the suspension, so the air bump will kind of compress as we go into full bump, and it will help slow the truck down so that you're not fully relying on the shock. And this is like our little last resort bump as well. So we have this bump stop, and we have this one that's adjustable with air pressure, well, nitrogen pressure, because you don't want to have air in there. And yeah, and then this guy, it's fully adjustable, it ties into our lower control arm, helps us with having too much droop. Everything is all fully adjustable and controllable up here. And then we can set our ride height with the coil over here. So we fully basically lowered at this rate. So once we get it on the ground, we'll see where the ride height is, and we can always drive some more preload into it and raise the truck up.
We are doing the shocks mount, which are relocated in the bed because we have long travel shocks. So Let me show you.
Shoulder.
I make those custom brackets out of really cool piece, and we're gonna slide a tube in it with this big notch, another tube here, and the suspension is gonna hang this way. We have a lot of precision on that.
Precision.
That's right.
High tolerances here.
Professional.
Take your time, Owen.
I want it right.
Take your time, Owen. Anytime, bud. Read the numbers.
26. Take your time.
We're even going metric. I got all day up here. We're going fractions. 32/64.
Perfect. Welding.
So back here, the other half of the CJD kit, so they have a spring under conversion, which basically what that means is we now run Deaver leaf spring that goes under the axle versus over the axle. And so that is a type of mod that you would do on the type of truck that you still want to run leaf springs on, but you want to get extra throw. So it's going to give you more of an arch in your leaf spring when you put the axle on top versus below without gaining too much ride height, right? And so we will still be running the factory frame as per the Class 7 rules, and we're going to mount another one of those air bumps right about here. So when this axle comes and swings up, it'll hit the axle. It'll actually make its way all the way back to about here as it comes up. And so with that, we have new drop shackles. They're a lot longer than the factory one because of the spring under conversion to get that extra rotation and articulation out of the rear. And from there, we had to do custom shock mounts. That's what we're adding in right now. We put tabs on the top of the axle, and we shaved off everything on the axle itself so we have better clearance. And so the shock now mounts on top of the axle, goes through this hole here, and is gonna mount to this tube that they're adding in right now. So off the end of this tube will be a little stud essentially. The shock bolts onto it, and then another plate comes off of here, and we're gonna support it here as well, just to make sure it's all fully tied in. And then that shock does reach this entire length, which is awesome. We have about 18 inches of travel in the rear, which is pretty substantial. And we have about 12 in the front. So the rear will be doing a lot less work than the front, we'll just say. So less weight back here, more travel. So we're gonna be playing with how much weight we put in the back outside of just the, the fuel cell and the one spare tire. We can actually, maybe carry the 2 spares again. Probably even gonna have a 3rd passenger back here. And so just really kind of getting some extra weight on the back and getting some good flow and just letting the front kind of, set the pace for the truck. Most recent update, place these limit strap tabs. So what I did was I used the lower to set my angle because I wanted this to hit nice and straight. I wanted the limit strap to have a bit of an angle, so as the axle swings down, the limit strap's perpendicular to the motion, so it gets the most use out of it. And then what you do from there is set the lower, weld that on, get your angle set. And then the upper mount, what I did was you use basically 1 hole's worth of distance. So basically I set this in here with about a 1/2 inch off, and then we marked that, welded that or tacked it. So then when we jack it up and we put the bolt through it, the limit strap will stretch that last little bit, and then that will basically catch it before it bottoms out on the shocks. So that's that little bit of cushion. Some people run double straps. We could do that, but I think we'll be good with just this since we aren't running really heavy springs like some of the bigger, heavier trucks do. So I'm just gonna get these out of the way and weld it up. And then the next thing we're doing is moving these. This is like the old park and brake mount. I'm gonna pull this out of the way. So we have a little more room for our bump pad. The CJD kit comes with this old bolt-on setup that you can run on a factory frame mode, and it would actually sit like this with the overleaf kit. But since we're doing the underleaf kit, we're actually gonna take his piece, cut these ears off, turn it this way, mount the bump on the backside, and our landing pad will be basically right here. So I'm removing this out of the way, because we don't have this hooked up anymore, and get a little more real estate, if you will. Bye.
Remember when I was talking about being 6.5 feet tall? Look how big this shock is. Sorry. This is you. Good. Sorry, Pierre.
Yeah, Alright, we're back in. And then we can build it like that. Be way easier. A little tighter.
Yeah.
And just.
Take measure, please.
Brad. You look Brad.
So pretty.
So, we have these bump canisters, right? They hold our bump stop, slides in there real nice. They have these little bolts that hold it in there tightly. So, we're gonna mount this to the truck, but we need to space it off of the frame rail a bit. So, I'm gonna take some of this rectangular tubing, and this hole saw diameter is exactly this right diameter for this. So basically, I'm gonna cut this with the hole saw, and it'll put a really nice radius in it, which will then allow me to stick this right onto here. It'll sit really smoothly and won't have these gaps. And then I can stick it on the frame rail, cut it to length, and weld it onto the truck, and it'll land where I want it to be.
Gonna be loud. So what we're doing is, we're placing our bump stop pad right now for this guy to hit. So it's gonna go right there. So when the axle's at full compression, we have our Bilstien air bumps. We slow it down before the shock bottoms out. So this is our little clamp piece. Bump slides in there. So now we have our landing pad tacked on, and this is our little frame store. Curving straight. Now we'll do these. Do the 49 in the quad.
I'm pretty sure drive shaft shops measure to only 1/4 inches anyways.
49 is 1 1/8 shorter. Alright?
1 7/8 shorter.
1 7/8 shorter. Yeah. Okay. Ain't no minute like the last minute, but we're good. He said he could fix it for us. We got to shorten that drive shaft. Because when we got it back yesterday, the whole axle was up, so we didn't get to get our full droop check, which we just did. Now the bumps are all set, which look great. So you can kind of get a better idea like how much throw we get. So see this little landing pad right here? So this is where this little bump stop. This guy goes over here. And this will actually be extended once there's some air pressure in here. We have it drained so it's fully collapsed for setting it at full bump. That hits there. That's a lot of distance to go.
We are
Taking everything out again.
yes, basically welding and paint prep.
Now, this is good. This means we're making progress. We are going to fill the shocks with nitrogen because they do not come gassed up. So what that means is we have to put 200 psi of pressure into these canisters, and that's what gives the pressure in the shock to work with the oil to give you the damping that you're looking for. So the way it works, take this little cap off here so I can knock it over later, and then we'll screw this guy in. And so you also want to make sure that this guy is all the way out. That's our little plunger needle. So this is how you are able to set your pressure without losing it. So I'm going to get this up to 200. Perfect. So that's locked in. So I'm going to close this guy back off. That's it. Done. Starting to throw some steel down. You saw me painting the rear axle. We even have Josh from Rap Legends out here getting our fresh Yokohama stickers on the rear, just to get them a little better fit. The front end's all together, 100%. We have the limit straps are set, the bump stops are set, and the shocks are set, so we're good there. Now that Jackson's done with all the welding up here, we are going to go through. Owen's starting to clean up the frame rails in there, assembly, and then we go testing. Big day today. It is our first official test day with our off-road truck. So when we went last year to Nora 500, we actually did not even test once. We finished the truck, drove to the gas station, put gas in it, and we drove straight down to Mexico, entered the race, won, and drove it home. And then even to Seaman back. So today, we're taking this hot rod out. Yeah. I haven't even driven this thing yet. Really? Yeah, Jackson's been doing all the driving. So this is my first time in it with the new suspension. So I'm pretty excited for it. The rear end of this truck is doing really well. The front, better than last year, for sure. But we're just trying to get the most out of these shocks that we can. Little shock tuning. Still trying to figure out what we can do in the front to get some more out of it. The rear is great. They're just down in some of the pressures. But yeah, the front, definitely finding the full travel in the front. That's for sure. So, gonna try and make some changes for next week. Turnaround action. So, good news and bad news. What do you want first?
Bad news always first.
Bad news is our shock leaks. So we're like weeping out here, which sucks.
Good news is, this really, really smart Bilstien guy's literally arms distance away.
He's gonna rebuild our shock like right now. So, that's cool.
He's got this thing cupped up so well.
All right, just popping the bottom of this shock off and getting a new little O-ring in there for us, looks like. Cool. Just throwing a little bit of pressure in it for the drive home. We're gonna be redoing all this before the weekend. So we gotta droop it out to do it properly. As we just learned today. Big learning, guys. So we're installing our window nets and we're trying to do them not just efficiently, but also cosmetically friendly. So, because if we just go on the upper tube, our window net runs downhill like our upper bar does, and then the window net sits at an angle. So we're trying to get it mounted level so it's straight up and down in the window so it'll look nice. So we're spending an unnecessary amount of time on this, as we normally do. And that's how we do things. So we are 2 days left until Nora. Things are going well. It's what, Tuesday night, we leave Thursday afternoon, and then tomorrow we're picking up our new Bilstien coilovers for the front that they built custom for us. We're super stoked on that. Finishing up some window nets and our third seat harnesses, which is gonna be rad, so we can carry 3 people. Well, 3 total, including driver. We're getting our sway bar set up, about finalized. So it's all prepped up and ready to go. Pierre did a really good job at building this thing, so definitely burly enough for this truck. That's gonna go on the back. That's gonna really help stabilize the truck. Got the tabs on the axle, got the everything kind of prepped. Everything's like prepped. Then we got Devin here who's doing a little bit of the bump stop action. Reinforcing our limit straps, not our bump stops, sorry. Reinforcing our limit straps because we actually started to tear the old one off a little bit. So you can see it here. That's the old one. So it's basically doubled up now. So now we have down the front face, double thick, half-inch thick. That's gonna do it, dude.
That's right.
It's gonna do it. So yeah, get our straps
Jumps
back on.
all day long.
Yeah.
Whoops all day.
Whoops.
Whoops.
Whoops. Otherwise, everything's going good. I would say the next time you see us, we're gonna be on our way to Mexico. See you guys then.